Hi there, today we're going to be restoring the chrome on a 74-year-old bumper. This is off a 1948 Oldsmobile and it's going to be a bit of a challenge because if you have a look, it's in quite a state. At some point in the past it's had some of the plating stripped off it by the looks of it, and it's rough. Not only that rough, you can see it, you can actually hear it. It's dented as well, so we're going to need to do some metalwork repairs as well as restoring the chrome. First thing to do is to book this in. We'll take a picture of it and that travels with the job as it goes around the workshop. The first thing that we've got to do to this bumper is to remove the rust and to remove the old plating. So here we're getting some copper wires ready. On this occasion it actually looks like this bumper has been at least partially stripped. It's difficult to tell with all the rust on it. So what we're going to do is pickle it in some hydrochloric acid to remove all the rust, and we can see what we've got to deal with. After it's been in there long enough to take the rust off, we're going to pull it out and have a look. This bumper has been stripped before. There's just a little bit of nickel showing on that rib running down the centre. But rather than put it in the stripper and risk it getting eaten into, it's better that we cut that off using some abrasives. Now that we've removed the rust, you can see what state the bumper's in. We've got our work cut out for us to restore this, as it is so rough. This is the bumper's first visit into the polishing shop. Now this is an additional stage that we wouldn't normally have to do. What we're doing is we're just cleaning the bumper up so that our metalwork repair guy can see what he's got to repair. We're not removing a lot of metal because we want to leave as much metal as possible on the bumper, because he needs metal in order to be able to work it. And if you remove a lot of material, it makes his job far more difficult. The other thing you'll be able to see is once we've cleaned up the surface, you can appreciate just how corroded this bumper is and how much work we've got to do to restore it. If you enjoy our videos, please like and subscribe to our channel, as it really helps our videos get noticed. Just marking out the main area where we can feel dents. These ones are pretty obvious. But then some little ones you can feel more than see. Unfortunately, when it came to the metalwork repairs, I arrived a bit late to start filming, and he'd already removed the bulk of the dents and he's just finishing off getting it back to shape. As you can see, it's just a few taps with the hammer back to the file. You can see the low spot that he's trying to bring up. Even though it's quite a large bumper, it's not a massive hammer that's being used. I always notice how these metalwork guys never hit the hammer directly. It's always moving slightly across the surface as the face of the hammer hits the metal. And another file to see it getting closer. This is why it's important that there's enough metal there to allow them to work the material, because they're moving the metal around and changing the thickness in different areas to get it to move to the shape that they want. If there's no metal or it's very, very thin, this makes this task almost impossible. You can see how those low spots are getting smaller as the time goes on. But this is work that can't be rushed, and there's quite a few hours work that's been carried out in this bumper already, and a few more to finish it off and get it back to shape, ready for polishing. Now we're actually going to start polishing this bumper properly. If you notice, we're starting out with a very rough belt, a 40 grit. The idea of using abrasives as rough as this is because we've got quite a lot of material to remove to get rid of the corrosion. So using this belt will actually help speed the process up, but obviously if in the hands of somebody unskilled it would be a disaster because you've got to do it evenly. A lovely bit of slow-mo here, a reminder that you can't remove marks without making a few sparks. To finish polishing this bumper is going to take quite a few hours. This first operation, where we remove all the corrosion marks, is called cutting out. Wow, after we've gone over it initially, you can see just how deep the corrosion marks are and how heavily pitted it is. We've got to remove as much of this as we possibly can. Here we're switching over to an angle grinder fitted with an abrasive pad. It's just a little bit more controlled than the belt. So there's just a really rough area here that we're just trying to get down and try and get to the bottom of these pits. Sometimes on these jobs you have to attack them with an array of different tools and methods in order to get a good result. Now we're back on the belt. All the time we're removing metal gradually to try and get to the bottom of those corrosion marks. You've got to watch out for the sparks causing fires. Here we've got a little fire started. Let's put that out and we can carry on. Here we go, speed it up, and then we'll get on to a finer belt to see how far we've got. There we are, just finishing the 40 grit belt there. We're on to the 60 grit belt. Now what we're actually doing is we've already removed the corrosion marks, but what we've done is put a load of 40 grit marks in, so we're going over it to remove those marks. Each polishing operation now is to remove the marks that we've left in it from the previous polishing operation. You've got to be really careful not to deform any of the shapes in this as you're doing it. So it's gently with these heavy grits, because it's very easy to misshape it. If you notice that recess right by that rib running down the bumper, we've not attempted to try and get right into the corner of that rib yet, but we will do as we get onto finer abrasives. Now we're on to the next finest belt, an 80 grit. And the procedure is basically the same again. We've got to go over it. You just saw him applying a little bit of grease to the belt. Now that grease slows down the cut so that you can control it a bit better. Bit more grease. Now we're on to a 120 belt. Progressively finer is the way to go. If you try and skip grades and just go from a very rough to a very fine belt, you'll get through a huge amount of materials, and also it will take a ridiculously long amount of time. If you enjoy our videos, please give us a like, subscribe to our channel, and if you hit the notification bell, you'll be informed when we upload new videos. There we go, speeded up again. And there we are, finished with the 120 belts. What we're going to have to do now is some of the little areas that you couldn't quite get into, we're going to go over with a mop that's dressed up with an abrasive sateen. This will be an 80 grit, so once that's dried off, we'll put this tool on while it's drying off. You can make sure all of the marks are out from these awkward bits. These are a much slower tool to cut, so you get as much out on the abrasive bounce as you possibly can, and then you go to these tools that you dress up. The advantage with these tools is that they're flexible. They're a cotton stitch mop that we dress up with a greaseless polishing compound, and then that way we can run them into recesses and they won't dig in or chatter and create marks. Now there's a few marks, there's a couple of little tiny holes as well. These have appeared because this is where it's corroded through from the back to the front. So you've got a little spot where the corrosion's bitten in really badly, and those there are some deep pits that we're not going to be able to polish out. So we're going to braze up those little holes and those deep pits. There's those deep pits gone now. And the deep pits the other side. Now it's time to fill up those little holes. It is quite common to get little areas where it's corroded all the way through. We just need to knock the top off that braze. And those areas that are brazed just need attending to and made finer. There is the bumper all cut out and ready for the first heavy coppering plating operation. Before we can wire it up for plating, we're going to have to solder some copper wire tags to it. This is because there are no brackets on the back of this bumper to wire to. Now we're in the plating shop, and using those tags we can attach some copper wires. The reason that we use copper is because we've got to pass an electrical current through this. It's called electroplating for a reason. Into the hot soapy cleaner tank. Now in plating, cleanliness is one of the most important things, so we've got to make sure that there's no oil, grease, fingerprints, anything like that, because they will show when you plate the item. Now we're going into the electric cleaner tank. When the power's put on, this passes a current through the bumper and it blasts any oxides off of the surface of the bumper, leaving the surface what we call active, so that it will take the plate in and it will adhere properly. There's our counterflow rinse system, and we rinse from the dirtier water into the clean water as we're going round. You can see the clean fresh water coming in. It goes through a weir system and then back out and treated. Into the dilute sulfuric acid. Now this is about as strong as vinegar, but it just removes any trace of the cleaning solutions. If we didn't remove the cleaning solutions, it would leave the bumper stained. The first coating is a layer of copper that's put on using a cyanide solution. This doesn't put a very thick deposit on, but later on we're going to put a thick layer on in the acid copper, but you can't put acid copper directly on top of steel, hence us putting it in this solution first. You know it's ready when it's a nice salmon pink colour. You need to swill all of that solution off. So back through the same swill system as we did before, progressively cleaner. And into the dilute sulfuric acid. We can go straight from here into the acid copper because that's also a sulfuric based solution. Set the power, and then it's in here for a few hours to get a nice thick deposit of copper. Now it's time to come out. And swill that solution off, and it's now ready to go back into the polishing shop to have more work done to it. Now we're into polishing the copper plating that we've just applied on top of that bumper. We're going over it with a fine belt. It's probably about a 320 grit, and we're going to see if there's any marks left in after all of that previous polishing and the heavy copper in. due to how bad this bumper was, there may be a few marks that we were unable to get out on the previous cutting out operation that we did on the steel. So this gives us another chance to have a go at it, although it's very likely that this is going to need heavy coppering again before we can finish it off. Let's see how we get on. You've got to pay special attention to the edges because those actually build up with a thicker layer of copper, so we're going to have to take those back down again or else the shape starts to get distorted. Now we're on to some work with the DA. We're going to go all over the bumper, and this just helps refine the finish, and also it gives us a really good chance to inspect and see if there's anywhere that needs a bit of extra attention. Can you see there's a little area there? We wouldn't have been able to polish this out before, because if we did, you'd scallop a little scoop out there. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill that, but not with braze this time because that would destroy the plating, but we're going to go with some lead solder. There we go, it's just starting to flow. Now it's time to clean that off. Now we're ready for the second coppering. Now we're into the plating shop for the second time. It's already been wired up at this point, and we're giving it a good clean again in the soapy cleaner. A last swill in the cleaner, and it's time for the electric cleaner again. After it's been in here for a few minutes, the surface of the metal is active again, so that we can have another go at plating it. As it goes through the rinse system, you can see that the rinse water is getting progressively cleaner. And then this is the dilute acid again. Back in the clean water. And into the cyanide copper. We're having to cyanide copper it again, just in case there's any little areas where we've broken through to the steel on the previous polishing. The fizzing you can see in the tank is actually the water being broken down into hydrogen and oxygen. Through the rinse system again. That's the dilute acid. And into the acid copper for what is hopefully the last time. We'll leave that cooking in there for a few hours again. Hopefully it's now fault free and ready for the final polishing operations. If everything goes well, this is the last time this bumper will be in the polishing shop. So we're going over it again with a belt, but this is a very fine one. This is about a 600 grade, and we've also put some grease on it to reduce the cut. Paying special attention again to those edges. You can see he's really going for it here. Because it's such a fine belt, you can actually polish into that recess on that rib. Let's speed this up a bit. Now we're on to using a DA. We just want to refine that surface till it's very fine, because then it's going to make it easier for us mopping. With the DA it's easier to get into some of those awkward spaces as well. Let's speed this one up again. Now we're on to the final polishing stage. This is a mop, and we're going to actually mop that whole copper bumper up and make it shine. If you enjoy our videos, please like and subscribe to our channel, as it really helps our videos get noticed. This is where you really reap the benefits of having got it to a very, very fine grade before you start mopping. Now we're moving to a type of mop called an airflow. These actually mop very quickly, but they're very snatchy as well, so only for professional use. You can really see how this is shining it up now. We've got to get it to this mirror finish before we can put it through the nickel and chrome, because anything that you can see here will be exaggerated by the nickel and chrome. Nothing will be hidden, it just makes it look worse. And there we go, it's finished. Just time to put some lime on it and give it a wipe down just to inspect it and make sure that it's absolutely perfect before it goes in for plating. Now we're in the plating shop for the final time. It's being wired up on copper wires so that we can pass a current through it, and it's off to the hot soak cleaner. Cleanliness is paramount again, so this time we're going to wipe it down with a nice soft microfiber cloth and make sure that it's absolutely perfectly clean. Now into the electric cleaner again. Passing that current through it is going to remove all of the oxides from the surface, giving us a lovely active surface for the plating to stick to. Back through the same rinse system again. At the end of this swilling, we're going to be going into the nickel tank. Now we're going into the nickel tank. This is where all of the good looks and the weather protection come from. So time to set the power again, and it's going to cook away in there for a couple of hours. Now that it's ready to come out, it's time for a swill. Because this is a large bumper, there's a chance that when we plate it in the chrome, we're going to get a ring around all the holes where there's some nickel showing. So to prevent this happening, we're just going to put some bungs in them holes. That stops the gases flying out the holes and blowing the solution away, leaving an unplated ring. So into the chrome tank. Power on. Adjusting the power to give it plenty. There it is, fizzing away. And now it's going in a solution that neutralises the chromic acid. So we're just washing the chromic acid off. Rinsed again in some clean water. Bungs out. And we'll put it on some trestles for the water to dry off. Now the water's dried off, it's through to final inspection. So we're just going to put some metal polish on here. All we're doing is removing the watermarks so that we can make sure that there's no problems with the finish and it's absolutely spot on for the customer. Now it's wiping the polish off so we can see exactly the finish that we've got. Here's a reminder of what the bumper looked like when it came into us. And this is what it looks like now. What a transformation. The customer this belonged to was over the moon with the results and couldn't wait to get it fitted to his car.